Hello, in this video I'm going to go over how to create a character creator system inside Unreal Engine from complete scratch. There are many different ways to create this system. In this video we're going to create this system by having a separate head, body, leg and torso mesh, and then we're going to swap out these skeletal meshes with meshes that we decide. In this tutorial we're going to be referencing our content browser quite a lot, so to save time just head over to Window and just go to Content Browser and select Content Browser 1 so that this is always there, as we're going to be referencing this quite a lot. So to get started, you just want to go to File and select New Level and just select the basic template and just create this level. And then we're going to right click, create a new folder and just call this Character Creator. And inside this folder we'll store all the blueprints and models that we'll use inside of this system. The first thing we're going to do is just click Save and save this level inside the Character Creator folder. Let's just call it Character Creator Map and save that. So the first thing we're going to do is create this camera, and we're going to use this camera to basically move around the world and basically zoom in and out when we're editing our Character Creator model. So let's set that up now. To get started, we just want to right click and go Blueprint Class and select Pawn. And then we just want to call this Character Creator Camera. And then we'll head inside here. And the first thing we'll do is go Add, and we'll look for a spring arm. And then with the spring arm selected, we just want to go Add and add a camera. And we'll basically just use this spring arm and camera to move around the world. One important note with this spring arm is just make sure that we check this Use Pawn Control Rotation so that we can freely rotate the spring arm around the world. Once we've done that, we want to head over to the event graph and we can delete all of this. And we're going to create two blueprints. One will basically allow us to move our camera around, and the second will basically allow us to zoom in and out with our spring arm. So first we're going to create movement around with our camera. To do that, we just want to right click and look for mouse X, and right click again and look for mouse Y. And basically when we move our mouse, it's basically going to move our camera in while with it. So off the mouse X, we just want to drag and look for Add Controller Yaw Input and hook this into here. And off of the mouse Y, we just want to drag and look for Add Controller Pitch Input and hook axis value into here. And then we just want to right click and look for Get Player Controller. And then we will drag off here and look for Set Control Rotation and hook from here into here. And then we want to right click on the new rotation and split the structure pin. Basically what this is going to allow us to do is basically move our camera around. And we just want to right click and look for Get Controller Rotation, right click and look for Split Structure Pin and hook up the Y, the pitch and the yaw. And basically using our mouse X and our mouse Y will basically set the pitch and yaw of our player controller. So with this we have the movement for our camera, so I'm just going to select all of this and comment it and call this movement for camera. Next we're going to create zooming in and out with our camera. To do that we just want to right click and look for mouse wheel up, and basically when we move our mouse wheel up we're going to zoom in with our camera. So we just want to do this, we just want to drag in our spring arm and drag up here and look for Get Target Arm Length. If I just head over to the viewport and select the spring arm, the target arm length is this red line. We can see that if I decrease it, the camera will move closer, and as I increase it, it will move further away. So we'll basically be using our mouse wheel up or our mouse wheel down to do this. So I'm going to change this back to 300. And if we head over to the event graph, what we're going to do is when our mouse wheel is moved up, we want to drag our spring arm target arm length and look for subtract. And we just want to subtract it by a value of 20. I found that works nicely. And then what we're going to do is just drag off our spring arm and look for set target arm length and hook this into here and hook pressed into here. Although I don't want it so that this camera can basically zoom in forever and ever, so in order to have limits on this camera we're going to add a clamp. So we just want to drag off here and look for clamp and select clamp float and hook up the return value into here, and this will basically make it so that our target arm length always has to be between this minimum value and this maximum value. So just so that we can easily change this if we need to, we're going to make them variables. So just right click on both of them. And I'm just going to move this so it's a bit clearer to see. So for the minimum variable, we just want to compile, and I found a value of 150 works quite well, and for max we can have 850. So the minimum value we're going to be able to zoom in is going to be 150, and the maximum value we're going to be able to zoom out is going to be 850. And we can just copy all of this and delete the mouse wheel up and just replace this with mouse wheel down and hook this into here. And in order to create a zoom out effect, we can just make this -20 so it does the opposite. And I'm just going to comment all of this and call this zoom in/out and compile. And we can just basically close this. And now if I drag in this camera, move up, just select it, and then you're going to go to the details panel. I'll just make this a bit bigger. And we're going to search for porn, and for auto possessed player, we just want to select player 0, and this will make it so that we automatically possess this camera basically as soon as the game starts. So if I click play, I'm this camera, I can move around, and if I zoom in, I zoom in, and if I zoom out, I zoom out. So with this, we basically created a camera which we can move around. Next, we're going to create the character which we're going to edit. So I'm going to create a new folder and just call this Sam, because this is going to be the name of the character. And inside here, we're going to import all the models and images that we're going to use in our character creator system. So where you can download this model, I'll leave a link in the description of this video. So for our modular character creator system, we're going to be using some models from this guy called Quaternus. He's super cool. Basically every month he releases some free low poly assets for game developers to use. So last month I think he released some modular women, and the month before that he released some ultimate modular men. So we're going to be using these modular men in our character creator system. So I'll leave a link in the description where you can download this. So we want to go to this drive folder, and the first thing we want to do is go to individual characters and go to FBX and just download one of these individual characters. So I'm going to download the worker. Once you've downloaded one of the individual characters, just head out of this folder, and then you're going to go to separate skeletal meshes and animations. So he's also made it so that these models are split by their body, head, legs, and torso. So in this tutorial, we're going to be using 3 of these characters in our modular character creator system. So you want to download the adventurer, the punk, and the spacesuit. So just download everything inside all of those folders. Once you've downloaded all those files, just simply drag in the worker FBX into Unreal Engine, and just make sure the skeleton is left blank, and then click import. Once you've done that, we just want to go back to the character creator folder, and then we want to select the adventurer, punk, and spacesuit folder, and just drag them into our Unreal Engine project. And then for the skeleton, make sure that we select this worker underscore skeleton. This will make it so that basically each modular part is using the same skeleton, and the skeletons, basically the way he designed it, is designed to work with each modular piece individually. So then we can click import all, and I'll import the 3 different modular characters that we're going to use. And then I want you to right click and create another new folder and just call this images. And again, I'll leave a link in the description of where you can download these images that we're basically going to use in our character select screen. So I basically made screenshot images of all the parts just so that we can visually see them, and I'm just going to drag them into this images folder. And now we're ready to start creating our character creator. So what I'm going to do is right click. Actually, what we're going to use is just the default third person character, and we'll just use that as a base. So just drag the BP underscore third person character into our character creator folder and click move here. And then what I'm going to do is create a very simple animation blueprint for the character that we just imported. So I'm going to right click, go animation, and I'm going to go animation blueprint, select the worker skeleton, click create, and I'll just call this character creator animation blueprint. And then right click again, go animations, and go blend space 1D, select the worker skeleton, or its character, creator, BS 1D. Then we want to head inside of the blend space 1D, and we want to look for the guy's idle animation, and just drag this to where it's 0. And then we want to look for their walking animation, drag this halfway, and then we want to look for their running animation, and just drag this all the way to the end, and go save. And then we just want to simply go to our character's animation blueprint, right click, and go new state machine, hook this into here, head over to the new state machine, then we want to go to the asset browser and just drag in our character's blend space 1D, hook this into here. I've already created a video on how to make an animation blueprint inside Unreal Engine, so I'm just going to briefly explain what I'm doing as I go here. So I'm going to head inside here, and then we just want to right click on this and point this to a variable and call this speed. And then we want to head over to the event graph, and then off this try get pawn owner, we just want to look for get velocity. Then we want to drag there and look for vector length, and then drag in our speed variable, and this will basically let us know what speed the character should be at. So now we've basically created a simple animation blueprint for our character. We want to head to this BP third person character, and we can just replace the skeletal mesh with the adventurer head and make it so that it uses the character creator animation blueprint that we just made. And I'm going to add his body, his legs, and his feet. So to do that, just select the mesh, then go add, and look for skeletal mesh. I'll call this body. I'll select the mesh again, then we want to add another skeletal mesh. We'll call this legs. Then I'll do this one last time, go add skeletal mesh, and I'll call this feet. Then for his feet, I'm just going to simply select the adventurer feet and make sure he uses the character animation blueprint. For his legs, I'm going to again select the adventurer legs and make sure it uses the same character creator animation blueprint. Then I'm going to select his body and make sure that it uses the character creator animation blueprint. And for the skeletal mesh, that is the adventurer body. And we have our basic third person character, which we're going to swap out his different body parts when we make our character creator system. And with this, we have our modular third person character. Next, we're just going to make it so that we can basically have this character creator screen where we can swap and edit out his different body parts. So to do that, we're going to use some enums, structures, and data tables. So first, we are going to create an enum. So I'm just going to right click, go blueprints, and select enumeration and call this body. So as you noted, inside of our third person character, he's split into 4 parts: his head, his body, his legs, and his torso. So we're going to keep a reference of all his different body parts in this enumeration. So I'm just going to add 4 enumerators. For this first one, I'm going to make it say head. For the second one, I'm going to make it say body. For the third one, I'm going to make this say legs. And for the last one, I'm going to make this say feet. And then we're going to save this and close this. And then we basically want to create a structure. So a structure basically contains a bunch of variables, and we're going to need these variables inside of our character creator. So we just want to right click and go blueprint and select structure and call this character creator structure. So inside of our character creator, we're going to need to know 3 things when we're basically swapping out our character's different body parts. The first thing we need to know is what body part we're going to swap out. So under the tooltip, we just want to create this first one called body part, and the variable type we want this to be is going to be the body enum that we just made. The next variable we want to add is going to be an image of basically what body part we're going to change to. So I'll just go add variable, and I'll call this image. And under here, for the variable type, we're just going to look for texture 2D. And then the final thing we need to know is going to be the skeletal mesh that we're going to basically swap to. So I'll add a new variable and I'll call this skeletal mesh. And under variable type, we're just going to change this to be skeletal mesh. So skeletal mesh, and we're going to select object reference. Next, we're going to basically create a data table for this character structure, and this will basically allow us to easily add more body parts in the future if you wanted to do that. So this data table will basically contain the list of all body parts that are going to be in our character creator system. So to create a data table, we're just going to right click and go miscellaneous, and then go data table, and then we're going to select and look for character creator structure that we just made, and click OK, and I'll call this our character creator data table. And then we'll head inside here, and as you can see, the character creator data table has 3 rows, one for body part, one for image, and one for skeletal mesh. So let's go over how we'd add a row to our data table. First, we just click add, and then we're going to select what body part we want to add. So first I'm going to add this head, then we want to select what image is going to basically be displayed when we change to this head model. So I'm going to select adventurer head, and then we need to select the skeletal mesh that this adventurer head is going to be. So under skeletal mesh, I'll select adventurer head, and the idea here is basically later on we're going to create this button, and on this button it's going to display this image, and then when we click on the button it will change whatever our third person character's head is to be whatever the skeletal mesh head is. So I'm just going to do that again and go add, although this time I'm going to add the punk head. So I'll select the punk head texture, and under skeletal mesh I'm just going to select the punk head, and then I'm going to do the exact same for the last type of head, so that's the space head, and then under skeletal mesh I'm going to change this to be the space head. So I'm just going to do this for the body. So next I'll go body, and then we'll add adventurer body, and then select the adventurer body skeletal mesh, and then I'm just going to do this for the punk body, and then we'll select the punk skeletal mesh. So hopefully you all know how to add all the other body parts. I'm just going to fast forward so it's not too repetitive. So fast forward, and I basically added a row for each body part that I imported. With that, we're now ready to create the UI for our character creator screen. But first, what I'm going to do is just drag in my BP third person character, and I'm just going to rotate him and move him so that he is behind this camera and isn't really colliding with it. And now we're going to create the UI, which is basically going to be displayed when we customize our character. So let's right click, go user interface, select widget blueprint, select the user widget, and then we just want to call this character creator UI, and then we just want to double click, open it, and in the palette we just want to look for canvas panel and select this and drag it to the character creator UI. And then what I'm going to do is look for button, and anchor this to the bottom left, and then look for some text, drag it here, and I'll make this text say start. And when we click the start button, we'll basically possess the third person character inside of the level. And then what I'm going to do is look for a scroll box and just anchor this to here, the right of the screen, and then under position X just make this 0, 0, basically make everything 0 here, and then I'm going to drag this to the left, and then we want to look for text and drag 4 texts into the scroll box. And then we want to look for another scroll box and drag each scroll box one underneath each text. Then we want to name each text. So this first text, I'm going to call it head. The second text, I'm going to call it body. This third text, I'm going to call it legs. And this final text, I'm going to call it feet. And then with each scroll box, just select them individually. And then under orientation, just make this horizontal because by default the scroll box is vertical, although we want each body part, we want the scroll box to be horizontal. And that's because we're basically going to add buttons inside of each scroll box, and when we click them, we'll make it so that the character and the level will change into whatever's been selected on that button. So next, we want to head over to the graph, and we're going to make it so that this start button works. So we'll go to the graph and event construct. What we're going to do is right click and we'll get player controller, and just drag off here and for set show mouse cursor, and just leave this checked. And this will make it so that we can always see our mouse cursor and can click on things. Then we want to drag off here and for get all actors of class, and then we look for the BP third person character, and then out actors we want to look for get a copy, and we just want to right click and promote this to a variable and call this third person character ref. So we're going to get a reference of the first third person character inside the level, and that's all we need for now. And then we're going to head over to the start button, scroll down and go on clicked, and on clicked we just want to look for remove from parent. This will remove the HUD from the current viewport, and then we're going to look for possess. For the possess node, I think we need to right click and uncheck context sensitive, and then look for possess. Yeah, this one, possess. And then we want to drag in our third person character reference and hook this into pawn. And then we can just copy this get player controller and hook this into target. And this will make it so that we possess the third person character inside of the world. And once we've done this, we no longer need to show our mouse cursor. So off of here, I'm just going to look for set, show mouse cursor, and we just want to leave this unchecked, and this will make it so that we can't see the mouse cursor in the game anymore. And then finally, we just want to drag off here and look for set input mode. Then we'll look for set input mode game only, and this will make it so that we're in the game only input mode. And then we'll go compile, and just to test that everything's kind of working so far, let's test this out. So go back to the character creator camera, and then we want to right click and look for event begin play, and event begin play we're going to create a widget. This widget is going to be the character creator UI that we just made, and then we're going to add this to the viewport. So now let's go compile, close this, and I'm just going to move my camera up a bit, and let's go play. So as you can see, when I click play, I start as this camera. I can move it around, and I can zoom in, and I can zoom out. Let's just make it so that our player character doesn't collide with the camera. As we can see, it causes some weird issues. So yeah, we can see when I move the camera there, it kind of like is weird. So to fix that, we can just go to our mesh, each mesh. We can select them all at the same time. And then I think it's under collision presets. We want to change this to custom. Oh, I may have to do this individually. Okay, we want to change it to custom and just make it so that it ignores the camera, because we don't want this kind of like colliding with the camera. And then I'm also going to select the capsule component and change this to be custom and make it ignore the camera. I can zoom in and we can see it's not really clipping or being weird with the camera. I click start, I then possess this character and I can move around with him. So that's very nice. Next, I think we just need to make it so that there are these buttons, and when we click on these buttons, it'll basically swap our character's mesh to whatever we set in these buttons. So let's create that button. So let's right click, go user interface, widget blueprint, select user widget, and call this change button. We want to head inside this button, and under the palette we want to look for not scroll box, scale box. Yep. Sorry, not scale box, size box. Sorry, not scale box, it's called size box. Yep. And then select the size box and put width override and height override. And I think I used the value of 300 in here. So that's going to be the width of the box. This is going to be the height of the box. And then here, under fill screen, we want to put desired on screen, and this will just change it to be the size of our scroll box. Sorry, the size of our size box. And then we're going to look for a button and drag this inside of the size box. And then we want to look for an overlay and drag this on top of the button. And then we're going to look for an image and drag this image on top of the overlay. For the overlay, just make it so that it fills horizontally and fills vertically, and make sure the image does the same. So we have this button, and this image is basically going to show the image that we created here. So let's set up the details for this button. We're going to head over to the graph and create a new variable. The first variable is going to be called image, and we want this to be a texture 2D variable. And this will just display the image of what we want to change into. Then we're going to add another variable and call this body part. And under the variable type, we're going to make this the body enum that we made. And this will let the button basically know what body part we have. Then we're going to create another variable and call this skeletal mesh. And just look for skeletal mesh for the variable. So we want to select this skeletal mesh object reference, and this will let us know what skeletal mesh we need to change to do. Then we need to add one last variable, and that's called third person character ref. And for this variable, we just need it to be the BP underscore third person character reference, and make this an object reference. Then for each of these variables, make sure that they're instance editable and expose on spawn. So that way, when we create this button, we can determine what values these are. Now that we've created that, next, if I head over to the designer, this image is called image underscore 26, and event construct, what we're basically going to do is we're going to drag in this image 26, and we're going to drag off here and look for set brush, and then right click here in the in brush and split structure pin. And then this basically represents the size of what this image is going to be. And because we made our size box 300 by 300, I'm just going to make the image 300 by 300. And then what this image is going to be, we're just going to drag in this image variable that we made and hook it into here. So this image variable will basically control what image is going to be displayed on the button. Next, we want to head back here and we want to select that button and scroll down and go on clicked. And when our button is clicked, we're going to basically change the third person character reference in the world to have whatever skeletal mesh this button is assigned to have. So to set that up, we can just drag in our body part and drag up here and look for switch on body. So this may not make sense now, but when we finish creating our character creator UI, you'll see how this system all works together. So when this button's clicked, we're gonna check to see what body part this button basically represents. And if it's the head, then we're gonna swap our character's head. If it's the body, we're gonna swap our character's body. So we need to create some custom events inside of our third person character so that when we click this button, our third person character knows what body part to swap to. So we're gonna head back to our third person character and go to the event graph and we need to right click and create 4 custom events. So to create a custom event, just right click and look for add custom event. And this first custom event, we're going to call it swap head. This next custom event, we're going to call it swap body. The next custom event, we're going to call it swap legs. And this final custom event, we're going to call it swap feet. For each of these custom events, we basically need to add an input, and this input is basically going to be a skeletal mesh reference. So I'm just going to call this head, and under the variable type, we need to change this to be a skeletal mesh object reference, and you basically need to do that for each body part. So I'll just quickly do that now. It's going to be the exact same process. So this one's going to be called body, this one's going to be called legs, and this one is going to be called feet. And then when this custom event's called, what we're going to do, we're going to drag in our mesh, because this mesh basically is the head, and we're going to drag off here and look for set skeletal mesh. Oops, so I can just delete that. And we're going to set it to be whatever is inside of this variable. And we're just going to do that for each body part. So I'll drag in his body, drag off here and look for set skeletal mesh, and hook up body to here and hook this into here. I can just copy this twice, drag in my legs and hook up this to target and hook this into the new mesh. Then I'll drag in my feet, hook this up to target, hook the feet to new mesh and hook this into here and click compile. With this set up, we can head back to our change button and we'll drag in our third person character. And when we click this button and this body part is a head reference, we're just going to call the swap head event from our third person character reference. And what we're going to swap this to is going to be whatever's inside of this skeletal mesh variable. So I'll just hook this into here and hook this up to head. Then we just need to repeat this for each body part. So when the body is called, we're going to call the swap body event, and we're going to hook up the skeletal mesh to here. When the leg event is called, we're going to call the swap leg custom event, and we're going to hook up skeletal mesh to legs and legs to here. And then when the swap feet event is called, we'll call swap feet, and then we'll drag in skeletal mesh and hook this up to here and hook up feet to here and click compile. So now our button, when we click it, will swap, depending on the body part, our character's head, body, legs or torso to whatever's inside of this skeletal mesh variable. So next we basically need to determine how all these variables are going to be set inside of this change button. And we're going to do that with our data table and our character creator UI that we created. So event construct, after we do all this, what we're going to do is just drag up here and look for sequence. And we want this to have 4 pins. Then off of the first sequence, we just want to drag and look for get data table row names, and then for the table we're going to select the character data table that we just made. Then out of this row names, we just want to drag and look for each loop, and then off this loop body we just want to drag and look for get data table and select this bottom one, get data table row, and then hook up this row name into this array element. And then for the data table, we want to select the character creator data table. So what we're basically going to be doing is checking every single row inside of our data table. So if I just go back here, each row is basically this thing. So this is row 1, this is row 2, this is row 3, and this is row 4. So what this first bit is going to basically be doing is checking every single row inside of our data table. Now that we have every single row inside of our data table, we're going to check the variables inside of that row. So this out row basically represents all the variables which are inside of the character creator data table. What we want to do is just right click on here and look for split structure pin. Then for this first sequence, what we're going to be doing is checking all the head body parts, and if there's a head body part, we're going to basically create a button, and that button will basically allow our character to swap into the different heads which are in this data table. So out of this out row body part, we just want to drag off here and look for equal. Whoops. So we want to drag off here. I'm going to turn on context sensitive, and we want to look for equal, and select this equal enum, and we want it to be on head. So if we find a row which has an enum which is a head, so we can just drag off here and look for branch and hook row if this row is found into this branch. And if that's true, then we're going to drag off here and look for create widget. The widget we're going to create is going to be change button. And because in the change button we made all of these instance editable and expose them in spawn, here in the character creator UI we can see them and set the variables for them. So for the head, we just want to, for the body part, we just want to select the body part here and drag it into here. For the skeletal mesh, we want to drag the skeletal mesh and drag it here. For the image, we want to drag this and drag it here into the image. And then for the third person character ref, we can just take the third person character reference that we made inside here and drag it here. And then this will create the button with all the data that we need. And now, if say I was to click on the button, it will know what body part it is and what skeletal mesh we should change it to. So next, we're going to basically add this button to the relevant row. What you want to do is select this first one under head and just call this head scroll box and make this is a variable, and then just do this for all the other ones. So I'll call this one, for example, body scroll box, and I'll make this is variable. I'll go to the legs one, look for leg scroll box, make this is variable. I'll go to the feet one, call this feet scroll box, and make this is variable. Then we can head back to the graph, and we can see each of them will be represented as a variable. And what we want to do is just drag in our head scroll box, and then look for add, and then we can just select add. I think it's this one. Okay, no. Sorry, we just want to drag here and look for add child. That's what it's called. And then we'll hook up this return value. So this is going to be the widget, and we want to just hook this up to the content, and this will add this button to the head scroll box. So let's just test that everything is working. So let's go compile, close this, and go play. And as you can see, it is working. So as soon as the game started, it added my head, so we can see this adventure head. If I select the punk head, we can see it goes to my character's punk head. If say I select the spaceship helmet, my character will change to that spaceship helmet. So let's use this method to add all the other rows. So if I go back to my character creator UI, what we can do is just copy this. So I'll press Ctrl C, press Ctrl V, and hook up this sequence to here. Although this time we're only going to add it if it is a body, and then we're going to add this to the body scroll box. So this time I'll just drag in body scroll box and replace the target here, and then I'm going to copy this 2 more times for my different body parts, and then hook them up. So this third one, I want this to be for my character's legs, and I want to add it to the leg scroll box. So I'll just get the leg scroll box and hook it up here. For this fourth one, I want it to be for my character's feet, so I'll just drag in the feet scroll box and hook this up here. And just click compile and close that. So under play, I'm just going to put new editor play mode just so it's a bit bigger. Okay, I actually think I made the buttons a bit way too big. So under the change button, let's just decrease their size. Let's make them 180 by 1. No, let's make it 180 by 180. I think I've made them a bit too big. Okay. So let's go play, and we can see we have a row for our head, a row for our body, a row for our legs, and a row for our feet. Okay, so for the feet row, I just need to change this to be feet. That's my bad. Now if I go play, we have a row for our head, a row for our body, a row for our legs, and a row for our feet. So we can just test that this all works. Let's make him have spaceman feet. For his legs, let's make them punk legs. For his body, we can just make this a spaceship body. And for his head, we can make this a punk head. And we have basically this character creator. If I go start, we can see, ooh. Okay, so that looked a bit weird. I realized last time there are two ways to fix this issue. So the first one is we can just uncheck this reinitialize pose, and this will make it so that when we change our skeletal mesh pieces, that they kind of won't be all over the place and look weird like that. So let me just change this to be that, and this. And now we can start. We can see it all looks in place and it's normal. Another way to fix it is, let me just recheck all of these, is we can basically set one piece to be kind of like the main piece, this head, and then attach all the other body parts to it. So I go to the construction script and drag in my mesh and look for set master pose component, and then we can drag in our feet, legs, and body, and then we want to hook up our mesh to be the new master bone, and then we want to hook up our legs, our feet, and our body to be attached to that body part, and just go compile. And now if I go play and swap his body parts, it should be fine. So that's basically just another way of fixing that issue. And with that, I think we finished and made our character creator system inside Unreal Engine 5. So if I click play, we can see I have 4 options. So I can change my character's head, his body, his legs, and his feet. So let me just change his head, his body, and go start. And I have this cool character which I've created. And then if you wanted to add your own character, you can simply just, for example, if you wanted to finish this off, you can go back to Cortanus' website, and I think in total he made 10 different characters. So if you wanted to, you could add all those different pieces and import them, and then you can have even more parts for your character creator system. One final thing, to make the UI look a bit better, I found the original settings that I used when I created this project. For the width and the height, we want this to be 150 by 130, and then head over to the graph and change the image to be 150 by 130, compile that, and then go to the designer and select button 32 and just look for padding. We want this to have a padding of 2, just so that way there's a gap between each button. And now if we click play, that looks a bit better than before. You can also download the full project files for this tutorial. The link will be on my Patreon, which will be in the description of this video. So that's all for this video. If you made it this far, you may as well subscribe. Hopefully you've learnt something new, how to use enums, structures, and character data tables a bit better. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.